Hello and welcome back to the channel. Kinder Knight here, and in today's episode, as I mentioned in my last upload, will be the continuation or part 2 to where we finally get around to finishing up the slums here in Westborough. And now, this episode will run a bit longer than usual, but that's mostly due to the more lengthier lore and story that I have prepared for you guys. I put a lot of work and effort into writing the story, and the end result is something I'm really proud of, and I hope you guys enjoy. I'm not going to waste any more time. Like I said, it's going to be a long one, so let's go ahead and jump into the time lapse accompanied with the lore, and afterwards, as usual, we'll meet back together for the tour. Spending one's lifetime within the slums is a sentence to a very rough existence, in which many of its unfortunate occupants are all too familiar with. The constant hardship to find work, the struggle to provide food and shelter, securing just one's basic human needs presented a real challenge each day, and even more so if one has a family to look after. Some manage to just barely scrape by the grace of the Elmhouse, through the charitable donations of the city's more fortunate residents. Although these donations were not merely given out of brotherly affection or even pity for their fellow downtrodden man, but for their own financial benefit, in which they would stand to gain from food or supply donations in the form of taxation reductions and compensations. After all, many people outside the slums ignored and chose to remain ignorant to the plight and condition of the people who lived within the slums. They despised and looked down on them and considered them a plague on their city. Their disdain and disregard for them ran so deep that it became customary among the upper class to cheat them out of their fair-earned and agreed-upon wages for work completed. Many of these poor people would finish a tiresome day of work, only to walk away with a quarter of the original agreed-upon amount, or in some cases, empty-handed. The peoples of the Westborough slums suffer and put up with many indecencies. Not since the time of Lady Laura Lindis has there been an authority in power who has shown any genuine concern for their well-being. It was clear, to survive, they would need to do whatever it takes, banding together and looking out for one another, as if they were all family. They would start to form their own subcultures, gangs, and sets within the slums, in which many of these groups would turn to a life of crime, robbing shops, market stalls, the unwary passerby, and also laundering stolen goods to even murder for hire. One particular man rose to power and prominence within the slums, above all others within its criminal underworld. His influence became so great that he became known throughout the city. His name was Johnny, the Lord of Slums. The Lord of Slums, a self-appointed Don, a man who was not unaccustomed to hardships and pain. As a boy at a very young age, he and his younger sister were orphaned when both parents and the youngest of his siblings died of disease. For months, they were left alone to wander the streets of the slums, fending for themselves, filling their bellies with whatever discarded scraps of food they could find amongst the streets of the market squares, and seeking shelter in whatever old empty crate or barrel they found available. One tragic day, while Johnny and his sister made their rounds scavenging for scraps of food, his little sister was caught and accused of repeated theft. He watched on as the only family he had left was hauled off to be sent to the gallows to be executed by means of hanging. As she screamed and struggled within the arms of the guards, Johnny ran to catch up to her, but he was quickly apprehended by another set of guards and beaten and left in the streets. As he lied there, unable to move, all he could do was watch the last few moments of his sister's life while he began to lose consciousness. When he had finally woke and regained consciousness, he was lying in a bed at the Westborough Orphanage, where he had been placed under the guardianship of the proprietor, Miss McGee, a very cold and strict middle-aged woman. Through her own life experiences had deeply soured her. She had no real fondness for children, partially being she could not conceive a child of her own, which made her bitter. Although being young and very beautiful, years passed. Her then husband's frustrations grew, and in a time where honest work became harder and harder to find, to make ends meet, he would take up mercenary work and enlist in other neighboring lands and lords' conflicts. While he was away from home during one of the mercenary jobs he had taken up, he fell in love with another woman, and she became pregnant with his child. 1 year passed, and Miss McGee heard nothing of her beloved husband's status or whereabouts. She took up work at the local tavern to help support herself because her husband had stopped sending portions of his wages back home to her. She did not know if her husband still lived or had fallen. One day, she finally received a letter from her husband, delivered by a hired messenger, a learned man who would read it to her. The context of the letter explained that her beloved was alive and well, and that he will not be returning to her. He has found a new wife, and she has given him children. In shock, she stood speechless. Mrs. McGee would continue to work as an ale maid at the local tavern, putting up with the lewd and vulgar treatment she had endured and grown accustomed to by the patronage while working there, up until one night when the tavern owner made a final pass at her during close-up that nearly ended in her life. She would never return there again, not knowing how she would further support herself, but recalling the Lord's wife, Lady Laura Lindis's promise to provide provisions and compensation to anyone in the position to house the many orphans of the city, in which no one had yet taken up the offer. Miss McGee would be granted the opportunity to provide a living for herself by opening her home to the needy orphans as their legal guardian. She would force the children there to constantly clean, scrubbing floors with little time to play, and hand out severe beatings to any child who would step out of line. Supper time started right at sundown, in which she would ring a bell to alert them. Anyone late would have their supper forfeited for the night. Johnny would find it very difficult to stay out of trouble and remain on good terms with Miss McGee. Orphanage life was not for him. The last time he would run away, he would not return, but instead join one of the gangs of the slums, to where the leader would notice and take a liking to him, taking him under his wing. Johnny was taught how to survive in their world. He was taught how to fight, cheat, steal, finesse, and most importantly, loyalty to family. Nothing stuck more with Johnny than this lesson. As he grew older, he easily moved up through the ranks of the slum's biggest gang. With his bright wit, good looks, and charisma, he was well respected amongst his peers. When it was time for him to take over as gang leader, no one would object or even dare to do so. Johnny viewed the people of the slums as his family, whether they liked it or not. He made it his responsibility to look after and care for them, since they have all been neglected. He would organize a truce between rival gangs and unite them. He would provide shelter, food, and money to widows and orphans, and to any employer even thinking to try and take advantage of the people of the slums. He would fix the issue by sending his enforcers in, which the employer would end up paying more than they bargained for, even going as far as to making bargains with shopkeepers that if they paid him a tribute, then he would offer them his protection and guarantee that no one from the slums would ever rob their shops. The effects of Johnny was being felt throughout the city, but none more than in the slums. Life was a bit better, and for most that meant a lot. Still, some even within the slums did not agree with Johnny's methods and would not accept help from him and desired nothing to do with him. After some time, and through the many years, Johnny would experience many assassination attempts on his life by other would-be slumlords who coveted his role and power within the subculture. And because of this, Johnny would start to fortify his home and base as if it were his own castle. Although Johnny had become very wealthy and did not need to continue dwelling within the slums. By this time, he could easily afford to build a lavish manor house within the Mid or East Boroughs districts. But he would ultimately decide to stay and reside within the slums. For the slums is and will always be his home. After all, he is the Lord of Slums. Okay, and we're back. And I really hope you guys enjoyed that story there. And for any of you guys that may possibly be new to the channel, or maybe even possibly missed the last episode, I do highly recommend that you go back and check that out. That way, you'll be all caught up and you'll have a better understanding of what's going on here, and also for the build in its entirety. But anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and take you guys all around so I can show you and you guys can check out some of the cool stuff here. And just a heads up, we're gonna try not to spend too much time looking at every little detail. That way the episode isn't longer than need be. I think our main focus will just be the places that were mentioned in the lore. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get moving now. As you can see, we have a couple of stalls here, just building and adding to the slum atmosphere. And as you no doubt see, the streets are very cramped and narrow, which is very intentional. I really love the feel. Really love the feeling when stepping into this plaza here. Obviously, we completed that section over there in the last episode. And turning around, we have the newest addition here. And I just think it all looks so cool and immersive. Love it, love it. But that's all the time I think we're going to spend with that. Let's go ahead and head in and check out the orphanage here. And now, here is where we have the orphanage. But before we go in real quick, I want to show you guys some other things around in this little area here. First off, we have a dove cove right here. So Miss McGee, who is the proprietor of the orphanage, she can harvest those dove eggs and stuff like that. And then over here we just have some small apartments, and then we have this nice little oak tree in the middle where the children of the orphanage have their own little swing right here where they can play and stuff like that. But then moving over here, we have some crates and some barrels, and of course we have this fortification here, which obviously behind that wall there we have the Lord of Slums manor, I guess you can call it. But we're not going to be going in through that entrance when it's time to check that out. We're going to go the other way around. But anyways, I just wanted to show you guys that. So let's go ahead and actually check out the interiors of the orphanage. So let's go ahead and pop that door. And now we step in, and as you can see, it's really old and worn and lived in. We have a hole in the wall, or cracks in the wall there with the wattle exposed. And then over here we just have a place where she stores the supplies for making meals. And then when we step into this area, we have the kitchen where we have the stove here, where Miss McGee would prepare the meals for the children. We have a bellows here to heat the fire and keep it nice and hot. We have some things hanging from beams and stuff like that. Then back here we just have some more areas for preparing meals and stuff like that. And we have straw on the ground to soak up any liquids or foods, slippery foods that may end up on the ground there. So there you have it. Really cool, really simple. I like it enough. But we're gonna go ahead and move on. And I do apologize, guys, if it does feel rushed. It's just a lot that I want to show you guys, and I don't want the video to be too long. But now we step up to the second level, and as you guys can no doubt tell, this is where the orphans eat their meals or have their supper. But real quick, I want to show you guys a little lore piece right here. As you remember from the lore, Miss McGee would ring a bell to notify the children when their meal is done. So she would come right here and ding, ding, ding that bell to alert the children, and they would do their best to make sure that they show up on time so they don't miss their meal, because she will not feed them if they're late. So yeah, we have that. And then we just have this area where Miss McGee would sit and drink her tea and eat her food right by her fire. And she loves to weave and, create textiles and stuff like that with her little wheel spinner right there. As you can see, we have some textiles on the wall there like that. So that's that. Now let's go ahead and move on to the next floor. And now moving up, we come to the floor where they sleep and where the orphans sleep and where Miss McGee sleeps. And I really did my best to make it feel really old and rickety and worn out and stuff like that, as you can see with all the rope and stuff like that. But here we have beds for our orphans, and they do have decent beds that sit off the floor. These beds would be obviously donated, I guess, to the orphanage, so that's why they're in a little better shape than just the little hay beds that would be on the floor. But you know, they have places to store their things and stuff like that. And then a little story real quick. If we climb up this ladder here, we come up to the top, we have this broom, because again, based off of the lore, Miss McGee is always making the children clean, and sometimes she'll, you know, put them in danger and have them climb up here and risk, you know, trying to dust the cobwebs off, and you know, sometimes a child may fall and break a bone or something like that. So yeah, little story there. But let's go ahead and check out this little area here. And now there's a lot of little stories in here, but we're only gonna check out just one real quick. But this is Miss McGee's living quarters. But over in this corner, we have this picture on the wall. And if you remember from the lore, it was mentioned that she was really beautiful and attractive when she was young. And so that's an image of her that was maybe given to her by her husband at the time for an anniversary or wedding gift, perhaps. So that's that. And then over here, we have another image of what I like to think is her husband, and she still keeps an image of him till this day because she still dreams that he will come back to her even after many years have passed. She still holds out hope that one day, you know, he would come back to her. You know, kind of sad, but you know, that's how life goes. But anyways, that's pretty much it. Now we're gonna go ahead and move on, and I think the next stop on the tour, we're gonna be going and checking out the tavern. We'll go ahead and open the door here, and go ahead and close it. And then over here under this little Ardacraft, we have some homelessness. We have some little shabby outdoor shelters there. Just building up that slum atmosphere. And now we come to the tavern. And now we will enter here. And now this is the tavern where Miss McGee worked when she was younger, many years ago, and was harassed constantly while she worked here. So here we have this stove where the cook or maid would prepare the meals for the customers. And we have stuff hanging from the ceilings there, a lot of little details. And we have this little station over here where the maid can grab drinks for the customers. And then obviously over here, we have where the customers would sit. And then I really did my due diligence. I really did my best to really make this, the ceiling in this place feel really old and run down. And I think it came out marvelously. I really love it. The atmosphere is really on point in here. And now up there is where the tavern's owner's living quarters would be. We're not going to check it out though. But, you know, up there is where he would stay. And that's probably where he would have lured poor younger Miss McGee up there and then tried to take advantage of her and, you know, ending and nearly beating her to death, and, you know, and her deciding enough is enough and just, you know, deciding not to come back. But that's it. We're going to go ahead and move on and check out the main attraction. Close that door. And now we're going to go ahead and check out the Lord of Slums area, I guess we could call it. And now approaching the gate, and first off you'll notice that it kind of looks and feels like its own castle. And I know that this would likely arise the question as to how and why would the Lord of the city allow such a thing. And now I'll take a second to explain the situation to you. If you been following the entire lore on the Lindis family, then you may recall that the current acting Lord is Linda Lindis, daughter of Tanis and Laura Lindis, twin to her brother Tilson Lindis. And now Tilson is and should be the rightful lord of the castle and the city, but due to his mental illness and his severe paranoia, he would abandon his station and then have a castle built way up in the mountains called Linda's Cliff, where he lives mostly as a shut-in. So then Linda had to step up to handle her brother's lordly duties, and so she ultimately decides on what goes and what doesn't. But although she doesn't quite agree with Johnny's methods and the fact that he has this self-appointed title, she also understands that he's not all bad and that he actually is a beneficial asset in keeping order and peace throughout the slums. And so he's allowed to operate to some extent. You know, again, as long as he keeps most of his dealings within the slums, and he keeping the peasantry orderly, and he doesn't attempt or try to start any revolts. Again, anyways, these fortifications wouldn't, you know, do much against an army that the Lindis family could raise. This is more so just to protect them from other slumlords and gang members that, again, want to try to overthrow him and take his position. But anyways, let's finally go and check this place out. So, as you guys can see, again, it's very fortified, you know. And here, we would have some guards right here on duty. And if you had permission or had an audience granted to see Johnny, they will let you in through here. And before we go up any further, let's go ahead and check out these battlements here. As you can see, we have some arrows up there and, you know, a place to light our arrows to shoot down. So that's kind of cool. And then again over here, if you guys remember, we saw this from the other side of the wall. So this is what it looks like from this part. Again, we have arrows. So again, he'll have guards stationed here as well. Pretty cool, I think. And then coming in through here, we have this little Ardacraft area where some guards will be posted, and they'll, you know, they can cook and eat, and anybody trying to sneak past the guards would surely be caught by the guards. And in here we have some more apartment rooms and stuff like that, but we're not going to check that out. But moving on, if we head all the way back here, we have this little outhouse here, as you can see, and then we have this little basin of water so they can clean up after they've done their business. But let's go ahead and make our way up these stairs here. So now we approach this door, we open it, and we step into Johnny's dining area. This is where Johnny and his closest gang members, his enforcers, higher ranking gang members will eat. And as you see, it's really nice and luxurious in here. Again, Johnny is very rich. He only chooses to stay in the slums because it's what's familiar to him. It's his home. It's who he is. And so, you know, he has a nice fireplace here. You know, the room is nicely decorated. It's nice and cozy in here. But we're going to go ahead and head up to the next level. So, we have this floor, which kind of acts as a barracks. Again, his enforcers and stuff like that, they would sleep up here. They have their own beds right here. They have a little table right here where they can, right here, they have a little table where they can play some games. Of course, they have a fireplace to keep the room nice and toasty. And they have a bunch of weapons around the room. So again, anybody trying to get to Johnny would have to go through them. So yeah, if they probably wouldn't make it an assassin unless he was particularly skillful and stuff like that. So anyways, we're gonna go ahead and make our way up to the next floor. We're just moving along. And so now we come to Johnny's floor, and as you can see, it's really, really cozy, and it's, you know, he lives like a lord because that's, you know, what he is. So he has some nice furs on the wall, some nice textiles, a few weapons there too. A nice place to write over there. And then he has a desk right here where maybe he has a map, you know, maybe planning a heist or something of some sort. I don't know. And then we have this thing right here. I don't know what it's called. It's sort of like a furnace. I guess it would keep the room warm as well. But in my case, it's not really used to keep the room warm. It kind of permeates a perfume that makes the room smell good. And so Johnny and his closest friends would, you know, sit around here and just chat and stuff like that. But yeah. Anyways, we have a little area right here where Johnny can groom and take his baths and stuff like that. As you can see, he has a mirror there too. And so that's pretty much Johnny's room, his living quarters and stuff like that. But opening this door here, we're gonna go ahead and step out on this terrace. And as you can see, up on top of his roof, he has a place where to look down. He'll obviously have some guards stationed here to watch from the roofs here. They have some arrows there, and so they can see anybody that would think about coming. And again, they built onto the top of the roof as part of their little battlements here, little makeshift battlements where, you know, he'll have guards stationed here. So again, he can see anybody that's coming for days.
And so I think that was really cool. Again, it's really fortified. Like, he has his very own castle within a, a fortified city and stuff like that. But that's pretty much it, you guys. And I hope you guys enjoyed that tour. I know it was kind of rushed, but again, I know this video is long and I wanted you guys to be able to stick around and not take up too much of your time, and you guys can see everything. So I do thank you guys if you made it to the end of this. Wow, guys, that was a long one, but I do hope you guys enjoyed it anyways. And if you did, please consider giving this video a like, and also consider commenting to show your support. And also consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. I really want to thank you guys for joining me in today's episode. I really put a lot of thought and effort into it, and I would really appreciate it if maybe you would share it with your family and friends. Just another great way to show me that you appreciate what I do. Again, thank you guys for joining me in today's episode, but until next time, I bid you a farewell.